CQ, 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 and welcome back to the 599 Signal Report. I am your host, Ron, W2ELS. As a part of this podcast, I knew I wanted to bring on interviews and welcome guests into the shack with me. So I'm honored to bring in my first guest into the podcast, Cathy W4CMG. The conversation we had was very enlightening. We talked DXing, to her history in ham radio, as well as Straight Key Century Club. So, without further ado, welcome Cathy W4CMG to the podcast. Welcome back to the 599 Signal Report. In the shack with me today, I have a special guest, Cathy W4CMG. Cathy, how am I sounding? You're 599.
You are 599 here in Nashville, Tennessee.
Thanks so much for Tango November. It is a pleasure to have you on the podcast today, and we have a lot to talk about and catch up on, and this is going to be a great episode. Cathy, before we start, can you tell me a little bit about how you got started in the hobby?
My interest in the hobby actually started when I was a kid and would go to my grandfather's house, and he had a huge radio room up in his attic. But then I never got to do anything because I was a girl and it was back in the early 60s. So put that on the shelf for a while. And then I married a man who was a ham radio operator. I did not know that when I married him. I knew he had a bunch of stuff in the trunk of this car. Turns out it was some old equipment. But he took me to a severe weather awareness day. And that's when I finally figured out what it meant when he kept calling us, sending his call sign or yelling it out. And I said, no, that's what you guys do. And that was the beginning of Tech General Extra on a year. And then I got on the air.
And then you got on the air. And then you found something called CW, Morse code. Can you talk a little about your Morse code background?
That's a long story,
All right.
And I'm saying that because I started in 2017, started to play with Learn CW Online because that was available then. I thought it was really cool. Finally decided to get on the air because a friend of mine got tired of hearing me saying I was studying it, had a fabulous 20-minute QSO after I figured out that I needed to send at the speed I could copy. My second one put me right off the map. I stopped participating for about 2 years.
Okay.
It scared me so much with all the abbreviations and everything that I had no clue what that guy was sending.
Oh, my.
So I went to CW Academy, learned a little bit about CW, and then when I retired in 2020, I became involved with Long Island CW Club and that SKCC. And to make a long story short, I've been on the air every day since.
Wow. In 2020, right around the COVID time.
Exactly. It had nothing to do with it. It just happened to have been about the time I retired. So was looking for something else to do and it totally embraced CW.
Yeah, and we've heard similar stories of how COVID or retirement gets folks on the air or started in the CW journey. Of course, this podcast does focus on learning CW and getting better at CW. But talk about when you first got started with Long Island CW. What was it like? How did you pick up the code?
I was actually fairly well trained in it by that time because I'd been off again for about 3 years. But I learned the protocols, and I have to credit W6 Jim with that because he had a CW protocol class. And that's when I at least learned different things that you would need to send, in what order they were expected. And that just opened the doors for me. It became active in SKCC and then just continued my CW journey from there.
So you are a part of a few clubs. So let's talk about the community aspect of CW and some of the clubs that you're a part of. Would you care to share and give details on how you got started in some of these clubs that you're a part of?
Okay, Long Island CW Club and SKCC we've already talked about a little bit, but as I became more involved with SKCC, I found that it was a very good niche for me, sending with a straight key, a bugger, a side swiper, and I pursued a number of awards and eventually got asked just because of my involvement to serve on the board. So that's always exciting, and
Indeed.
I could talk a while about that.
Absolutely.
But during that journey, I also became a member of CWOps, operating with paddles, and I'm on the air, as I said, every day, either participating in their events or SKCC events, or just casual QSOs as well. Eventually, I got invited to begin some work for the First Class CW Operators Club, FOC, and I also became a member of that. That was really a high point because it's quite a journey and shows a bit of accomplishment there.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure it is quite the journey, and it definitely shows that dedication and the accomplishment that goes with that. Not only are you a part of some of these clubs, you're also a teacher and a mentor and an Elmer. Can you talk a little bit about the teaching side and the mentoring and Elmering side of CW?
Sure. So my focus is more the intermediate students. So once people know their CW characters, and I do work with a number of folks that I Elmer right from the very beginning, but my focus is really helping people to get on the air and get over the finger fright, because that seems to be the biggest roadblock for everybody. They think they can get in, they know the code. Some people would just wait until they're perfect. And there are no CW police. Nobody's perfect. We all make mistakes in sending. We might miss characters in copying. But the thing is, the joy is to get on the air and to help people. That's what I do in my classes, essential operating subjects for Long Island CW Club, and then some other classes that I teach as well for SKCC, just to introduce them to the club itself and to the tools.
Absolutely. Definitely. As I appreciate your class, and I try to get there every week if I can, just to pick up what you're putting down. So, Cathy, you started contesting. Can you talk about contesting a little bit and your journey with contesting?
True. I somehow or other, because I live in Tennessee and made a number of radio friends, became involved with the Tennessee Contest Group. And they are a very highly skilled group. I came in as a newbie, started out with single sideband and participated in regular contests. I still participate in a lot of weekly contests, but I don't have a microphone anymore. I discovered through the Tennessee Contest Group that members of the club made a whole lot more points when they were doing CW than when they do single sideband. A lot of the contests do give you multiple points, either a 2 multiplier or a ×3 multiplier.
Right.
And it was just more fun. And there's that little bit of a competitive spirit in there, to be honest with you, that keeps me going, mostly to compete against myself, because I don't have a super station, although I am growing the station as well to make it a little bit more competitive as we go.
Oh, very cool. Definitely look forward to hearing more about that super station you're going to have. The one thing, and I'm hoping we can talk a lot of detail about this, you recently did a DXpedition. Let's talk about the contest. Let's talk about the DXpedition, and let's walk me through it from the beginning.
Ooh, the beginning started about 9 months before the actual competition, where I was asked by a fellow Tennessee Contest Group and CW Ops member, Juan AC6ZM, if I would like to go to Montserrat with he and his team to participate in CQ Worldwide. And very flattered. And that, how am I ever going to do this? Because I didn't think I was anywhere near as capable as the other people on the team. But he waited a while and just periodically would send me updates. And in August, we started a practice for CQ Worldwide CW. And the decision was that we were going to go to Montserrat, which is an island in the Caribbean, close to Antigua, St. Kitts, and Nevis. And that's where the fun started. It took place over Thanksgiving weekend. So, of course, my husband had to deal with his own turkey. And fortunately, he had family that he could visit, because we knew it was going to be super heads down from the time that we landed on the island.
So super heads down. What was your call sign in Montserrat?
We each had our own individual call signs. So individually, when we weren't in the contest, we got to operate outside of contest hours. I was VP2MMG. So I was lucky to at least get 2 characters from my suffix in my call sign. Our club call, or the event call that we used, was VP2MMA.
Yes, very cool. So when you touched down, was there equipment? Was it the station already set up and you just got in there and started practicing? How did the setup go?
Oh, we wish we were that fortunate. We did go to Gingerbread Hill, which had an antenna tower set up and some makings of a station. At one point, they had radios there, but they no longer do. So the team, and there were 4 operators who were on the team. The team had each brought some additional equipment with them. Some of the equipment included 2 Kenwood TS590. It was SGs that they had brought. And so that was totally foreign to me as far as the radio was concerned. And they actually did have me practice for a couple of hours with my own call sign. When I say practice, I was calling CQ and figuring out the equipment as I went.
Right.
But so that I could feel comfortable when the contest actually started. But before we even got that far, it did some enhancements to the tower that was there. We built a beverage antenna so that we would be able to have better receive capability on the lower end. And we also set up a tri-bander that we were able to use. So we had a lot of equipment, used something called Antenna Genius, and put bandpass filters for each of the individual bands that we would be operating so that we could just flip seamlessly from one band to another without having to worry with that. So a lot of setup. We got there on Wednesday before Thanksgiving, or actually we landed in Antigua Wednesday before Thanksgiving, flew into Montserrat on Thanksgiving morning, and we were just heads down until it was time to go and have Thanksgiving dinner at a local restaurant.
Okay, very cool. Right.
Yeah, it was.
And let's talk a little bit about how many words per minute was the contest running roughly?
It varied by operator. We tended to start out somewhere around 34 to 38 words a minute and just kept rolling the whole time. We were targeting about 135 QSOs an hour. Didn't quite make that average. We averaged close to 113. And a lot of that was just because you couldn't navigate the pileups to hear the people who were actually sending.
Wow.
But it was a blast.
And tell me, how did you prepare for 35 words a minute with 100 plus QSOs an hour? What was your preparation like?
We all started, and most of us have been on the air for a while. I run in the CWTs, and I usually calling CQ or running versus searching and pouncing. But I'll usually run in the CWTs, and over time you gradually increase your speed and your comprehension. In addition to that, each of the team members also loaded Morse runner so that it could be run with N1 MM logger, because that's what we knew we'd be using.
Right.
And we all practiced at about 35, 36 words a minute with different features. So example, the pileup feature, it sounded like there could be anywhere from 1 to 6 people calling you at the same time. And we would practice several times a day to get our speeds up and keep them there.
To get them up and keep them there. That is amazing. And I worry about the 1 or 2 people are calling me in POTA, and you're talking about 100 people pile up. Wow, that is amazing. So, so then you transition right into the contest. How many ops were running at one time, and how did you take breaks, and how did you shift in and out?
Okay, that's pretty interesting too. We had 2 people operating at a time because keep in mind we were running multiple operators, but only a single station, multi-single, so only one station. Even though we had 2 radios, we could only operate calling CQ on one. That was the running station.
Okay.
And so we had set shifts. They paired us up. So Randy, WK9M and I were paired together, and Randy's a super operator. But what we would do is wind up switching. I would operate for an hour, and if I was running or calling CQ, then I would switch and I would do search and pounce only for multipliers.
Multipliers.
And that was important because those had to do with the CQ zones. That meant that there could be hundreds of people on a band, but we could only look for those in CQ zones that we had not worked yet, either as either as a running station or as the search and pounce. So sometimes there'd be 100 stations on the air calling CQ, and we could call 4.
So now you're in the pileup.
And trying to break that pileup got to be very interesting. We all became pretty expert at using the XIT, the transmit offset frequencies as well. But we would flip-flop back and forth. We started out with a 4-hour shift for each team, and then we went to 5 hours, then 6 hours, and then back. So each operator worked 24 hours, but we had plenty of time to sleep in between. You just had to be really good at catnapping, because I think the max hour of sleep I got at one time was probably about 3.5 hours.
Wow.
And I have to tell you, when I woke up, Juan, AC6ZM's wife, was there. And I would walk out of my bedroom and she would hand me a plate of food. And I'd say, Melissa, I can't eat all of that. And then I'd eat it all, because she was an amazing cook. And as I went upstairs to relieve Juan and our 4th member, then AD7N, they would come downstairs. She would feed them too. Then they'd go to sleep, and we just repeat the whole process every time we changed shifts. But we worked it off, believe me, because the pileups were so intense. Just sitting in the chair for that amount of time was pretty intense.
That sounds completely intense. And I know you were running a kilowatt, right? Is that how it works?
No, we ran 100 watts.
What? 100 watts?
Yep. We ran 100 watts only.
Right.
And as part of running that 100 watts, we actually were very successful, because keep in mind, we're around salt water, we're up high in a mountain.
Right.
And so we did have an advantage. Plus, everybody wanted us.
Right.
So they were willing to go and take the time to stave off and beat the pileup. And
Yep, wait it out and just hope your call sign gets called.
And most of the time, it was 1 or 2 characters. Every once in a while, we'd get lucky and be able to hear a full call sign, which was the goal, was to hear a full call sign and nail it. But there were times the pileups were almost unintelligible. And we had strategies for dealing with those as well.
Right, because you weren't running split at all, did you, during the contest?
No, we didn't run split. There was no room to really run split. But what we would do is take full advantage. The station who was calling CQ, either myself or Randy and the other 2, we would take full advantage of the RIT, where we would still be calling on the same frequency, but we have the ability just to go and move around and see where maybe we could pick up 1 or 2 stations. And the other thing that we would do is set the filters, depending on how big the pileups were. We were down a filter of 60 versus the typical anywhere from 1 to 500. So we really narrowed our filters, used our RIT, and that at least gave us a fighting chance. So maybe we'd only be listening to 5 or 10 stations instead of, 100.
100. Wow.
Yeah.
So Sunday night rolls around. What are you thinking? What was it like after you got through the pileups? The contest is closed.
Wow. I got to tell you, Sunday night was a night of celebration. And of course, Melissa, Juan's wife, had made us a wonderful meals. We sat down, had a meal, had a beer, relaxed a little bit, and celebrated. In total, we made 5,382 contacts as the contest station.
Wow.
And we had a score of 7,747,710. Still, I know that there's going to be a little adjustment as they go through if we busted calls. We did very well and did a lot of celebrating.
Sure.
And then Monday, we took a tour of the island.
Very cool. So you did stick around the island and take the tour.
Yeah, just for one day. And then I had to leave to go for another event over in Florida.
And you did operate, I believe it was Monday, because I got you in the log on Monday with your personal call.
With my personal call. Now, we did keep track as we changed stations, and you had asked how we changed stations. Right. Okay. When we changed stations, what we would do, and one does have a feature for multi-ops to be able to hit control and then add your own personal call sign. So we were able to go and track who worked which person during which shift, and then take a look at that. But switching was a little interesting because we would listen to each other on headphones that we would plug in so we could both hear. And literally, when Randy and I switched, if he was running at calling CQ, it was the running station that had the quicker lift. He would literally enter a call sign, call CQ, hit Control O. I would type in my call sign, sit in the chair. He'd lean over me, type in the next call sign that he heard. I would call CQ, and then I'd be off and running. So people never knew. It wasn't like, I'll hold a minute for an operator.
Right. There's no standby.
Like you hear in the sideband contest. We were just, one was in the chair, the other was in the chair, and hopefully it was transparent to the folks.
Yes. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That sounds like a amazingly precise and the intricacy besides that. So the next question is, will you do it again or another DXpedition?
Oh,
okay.
In a heartbeat. We're already talking about a couple of things coming up for next year.
Oh, very cool.
We'll see where we land. We've got a couple of different options.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. Definitely look forward to hearing more about that. And it definitely doesn't sound like you're going to hesitate to do it again.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Anything else you want to share about Montserrat?
Montserrat was an amazing island. It still has an active volcano.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. And so what we did was went with a certified tour guide, and they did have to be certified to take you anywhere close to the northeast side of the island so that you could see the volcano and go to an observatory. So we did get to tour a little bit of the island. There is a spring where if you drink from the spring, and the water there was amazing. You could drink the water in Montserrat.
Oh.
But they had a spring, and there was a sign saying, if you drink from the spring, you'll be back. So, of course, we all drink. We all want to go back, of course. And then we went up to the island where we actually had to have our tour guide meet some government officials who would go and check the paperwork, his paperwork, 6 souls on board, which was a little unnerving hearing.
A little bit.
But it was phenomenal. We got to get, when I say close, probably 10, 15 miles away from the volcano, but you could see even from a distance, steam rising from the volcano. Right now they're at a level 1, and hopefully it stays that way. But it was a beautiful island, a lot of history and impact from the most recent eruptions too. So a lot of it was sad history, but fascinating.
Was it a long time ago, or was it a recent eruption?
I believe it was in the late 1990s. Okay. And then there may have been some smaller ones as well. But at the observatory, what we saw was what looked like a beautiful beach, and there was an airport under there. It was all buried under the lava flow. So tremendously impactful. And they lost so many people on that.
Oh, I can imagine. Oh. All right. So let's come back stateside, or I should say more closer to home. You want to talk a little bit about SKCC? What's going on? Anything new or exciting you want to share?
Oh, okay. So SKCC, we've got a lot of stuff coming up. We have what they call the Straight Key Sprint, and that happens the 4th Wednesday of every month. But keep in mind, it's UTC time. So stateside, it's going to be 00 UTC. So it's going to be Tuesday night.
Tuesday nights, yep.
Okay. And that runs for 2 hours. And you just have a very brief, the traditional SKCC exchange with a straight key side swiper or a bug. And it's your RST, your location, your name, and your SKCC number, and then move right on to the next one. In the month of January, everything except the 1st, we have what we call Straight Key Month. There are operators that are scheduled literally around the clock to call CQ, and they'll call at CQ SKM, stateside call signs in the 10 call areas are going to send their call as K3Y / whatever their call area is. Okay. And they're just going to make as many QSOs as you can. And the goal is to be able to work all of the various, I call them Hollywood squares, but all of the various squares, which means each band, okay, and each K3Y station, plus all the international stations, because we literally have stations, I think, from everywhere but Antarctica that have signed up by now.
Very cool.
To take the shift. Starts on January 2nd.
Okay.
At 00 UTC, because ARRL has their straight key night, which is 24 hours on January 1st.
Okay.
So it starts New Year's Eve. It goes through for 24 hours. The minute that it ends, SKCC picks up. We'll be running until January 31st at 23:59 UTC.
Very cool. I didn't realize it went right into the ARL. So transitions right in. Very cool.
Yeah, and that's actually how SKCC was founded. So our founding people had said, how come they only do this one night a year? Let's just keep doing it. And the century started out with, they didn't think they were going to have 100 members, or it would be hard to work 100 members.
Right.
We now have over 30,000.
30,000 members. Yeah. Wow. And if anyone wants information on SKCC, where can they find it?
They can go to SKCC group at, let's see, I think it's ccgroup.com. So make sure that you put the group in there. Or if you do a search for Straight Keys Century Club, and I'm saying that because if you search for SKCC and do a Google search, you might get a couple of churches thrown in there.
Gotcha.
So Straight Keys Century Club, if you Google that or go to skccgroup.com, you'll be able to find us.
You'll be able to find SKCC, and you'll find Cathy because she gives the intro classes. Tell me about those.
Okay, those just take our new members and some of our legacy members who maybe they're not active or just want to find out what else is going on. They'll join the class. We run it usually the first Friday and the first Sunday, the first weekend of the month. Sometimes we change it because of different travel or other conflicts or holidays or whatever. But we always send out in the group's IO the notification. They do have to sign up for it because at that point, when people send me an email and say they're interested in either Friday or Sunday, because it's duplicate content, right, then I'll go and I'll send them the Zoom link to get onto the call. It typically lasts about 2 hours. The first hour is intro and maybe a special topic. The second hour-ish is talking about the tools that are specific to SKCC to help people find people on the air, have a little chat in what we call our SKED page, log it, and then find more people in what we call the skimmer. So a lot of things going on. Some folks will join for an hour and then come back another time to do the second hour. And that's perfectly acceptable as well.
Absolutely. And it is amazing that 2 hours, because there's just so much to learn about SKCC that and the time flies by. It doesn't feel like 2 hours at all.
Got to tell you, by the end of the 2 hours, my voice usually quits before the amount of content.
Exactly, because there's just so much content there. Thank you so much for sharing about SKCC. At this point, we're going to transition to the rapid fire section of the show, and we're going to ask you to respond in 1 or 2 word answers only. So we will go ahead and begin. So your current comfortable sending word per minute?
About 28 to 30.
To 30. Favorite paddle, straight key, or bug?
Depends.
Okay. I'll take it.
It depends on whether I'm contesting, in which case I've got a Kent key that is sitting right next to me, and I also use an N3Z and paddle, right, and then I use the Bengali Intrepid bug if I'm doing SKCC.
Okay. Oh, the Intrepid bug. Very cool. Yep. Favorite rig?
Craft K3. That's what's sitting next to me.
Very cool. And you got to pick it, but this is a hard question, I know. Your favorite key?
All right. I'm going to say it's still the N3ZN paddle.
Okay. I've heard so much about that paddle that I'm very interested. Do you prefer to be a POTA activator or a POTA hunter?
I hunt more than I activate.
Okay. What is your favorite antenna?
The one I don't have.
Okay.
I've only got one antenna. It's a G5RV. It does the job. I'd love a hex beam.
The hex beam. That would be, that sounds, I think everyone would love a hex beam. What is your favorite contest to participate in?
Ooh. I'm going to say Worked All Europe.
Okay. That sounds like a very tough one.
Yeah.
And last but not least, what was your favorite CW contact?
I'm going to go back to my very first one. Okay. And you never forget your very first US and your very first DX.
Okay.
So I'm going to say that the 20-minute QSO that Pete WM4Q picked up the phone and said, plug in your key and I'm not hanging up till I have a QSO with you.
Very cool. Very cool. So you have that. Cathy, time has passed by and we are going to part ways and let you go. But before we do, is there any advice or anything you'd like to share with the listeners of the podcast?
One thing I would like to share with folks is just get on the air every day. If you can't get on the air every day, put yourself in the penalty box, and it's a personal penalty box, and do 5 the next day. And compete against yourself, because you're always going to be working toward a different goal, and everybody starts somewhere.
Sage advice, Cathy. So we will go ahead and say thank you for being on the show and wish you a fine 73 or 72.
All right. Thank you.
Wow. What a great interview and what a great conversation with Cathy today. I want to give a special thank you to Cathy W4CMG for coming on the podcast. Well, that's all the time we have in the chat today. So until next time, 73s